I was chosen to speak to you in English because this message crosses oceans and finds one heart at a time. And today, it has come to you. Listen as if the words were shaped only for your breath and your pause. The voice that calls you knows the exact shape of your mornings, the map of your small hesitations, and the single bright corner where you still hope. Hold that corner gently as you listen now, because what I say will reach where you are and rest there as a small, steady light. You have walked through rooms where the air remembered someone else's grief, and you carried their unspoken prayers like a folded letter in your pocket. In the quiet, after footsteps, you opened that letter and found your own name written in the margins, and you felt both surprise and a soft ache, a recognition that your loneliness had a neighbor. This is the place where the message begins, with the recognition that you are not a mistake on the page, but the page itself. The street where you once waited for a bus that did not come still holds the echo of your breath. A hummingbird's wing could have fit inside that silence, and the small, exact sound of your wanting is the petition that ripples outward, answered not by distance but by attention. In that same street, a child dropped a bright wrapper, and you bent to pick it up, feeling the ordinary mercy of small hands. And that mercy is the secret thread that ties your present to what is being prepared for you. Remember a morning when rain came soft and you thought of missed chances. You stood by a window and watched the water find its own path down the glass, and it taught you to let the shape of sorrow move without becoming the shape of your life. The window's patience is not indifference. It is a kindness that holds sight for you, a promise that seeing and receiving can coexist. Receive this now. The same kindness that let the rain find its path is reaching you through this message, not to erase the map of what you've lost, but to redraw the border where possibility begins. Your body knows how to remember tenderness even when you do not ask for it, and that memory is what will open a small door you might have thought locked forever. There was a time you traded your voice. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. For peace. And in that trade you learned its cost. You learned how silence can feel like a coin pressed flat with fear. How saying nothing can keep the calm but starve the soul. Yet even before you traded, before the ledger closed, there was an answer moving toward you, patient as dawn, calling your true name in a language your deeper self recognizes. This message arrives as that calling, gentle and relentless. You are permitted to speak what you have hidden, and when you speak it aloud, the air will rearrange itself to make room for what you need next. Do not be afraid of breaking the quiet. Some quiets are waiting rooms, but others are prisons. Voice is the key that distinguishes them. Think of a small flame you once protected, a candle burned on a bedside table, or a single match used to light a friend's fear. You held it because you believed in tiny illuminations, and in holding it, you learned that light can be both fragile and fierce. That simple flame is a symbol of your stubborn hope, and hope is not naive. It is a muscle that grows when you feed it with honest habits, with words you mean and actions you can keep. I tell you now that the flame in you will not be snuffed by what you have endured. Rather, it will call others to gather. An invitation that does not demand perfection but only presence. Keep the flame. Tend it with the small disciplines your life allows. And watch how soon it draws a circle of warmth larger than you expected. There will be moments ahead when doors close without reason and friendships shift like weather. In those moments, do not confuse the closing door for the end of all passage. Doors are made of hours and choices, and a closed door can be the sign of a corridor opening elsewhere, or simply the cue to turn and look for the window you overlooked. When someone leaves a room, the air changes. You might taste loss, but that altered air carries new scents you could not have noticed before. The rose bush that buds behind the fence, the bread that rises because you dared to bake again. This message is a reminder that endings have edges where beginnings can be drawn, and that your life is full of such edges if you will learn to trace them with curiosity rather than despair. You have perhaps carried a secret that felt too heavy to name, a sorrow that learned to live inside your ribs like a small animal, making its home there. Naming is not betrayal. It is the act that invites light in. Say the name of your sorrow out loud, perhaps first only to a pillow, and notice how the sound changes the room. Language is an engine that reshapes what seems immovable. When you give the weight of your heart a word, it stops being anonymous and begins to have contours you can care for. This message brings you permission to begin that naming with tenderness and without urgency, so the weight can be set down in places meant to hold it. There is a truth you may have avoided. You are allowed to be tender to yourself even when you are not yet whole, and compassion for your current self is not the same as surrender to your pain. Treat your present heart as you would a friend who has been traveling too long without rest, offering water and a blanket, not a lecture about better choices. Small acts of self-kindness, a measured pause before answering a sharp word, an honest apology to your own mirror, will change the architecture of your inner life more reliably than grand promises you cannot keep. Hear this. Gentleness toward yourself is a practice that invites repair, and repair does not happen because you deserve it, but because your life needs an ally. There are people who have whispered blessing into your name, and you may have missed it because you were listening for thunder. Slow listening is a spiritual discipline, and it is time to learn it. If any of what I say lands in you like a stone, let that stone sit in your hands for a while and feel its warmth. Then write a single short word in the comment of your private life as an offering, a small sign that you heard. Write the word that fits as a quiet seal of this moment. That simple act will anchor this message to the daily rounding of your life. It is not theatre but a private vow, a thread you place into the weave. Writing that short word is not a performance. It is a way to say to yourself that you were present for the grace that arrived. You may fear that asking for help will make you less spiritual or less faithful. This is a false bargain you learned from stories about solitary saints who never asked the world for anything. In truth, asking is a sacred act. It acknowledges the human condition and invites the communal fabric to mend you where it can. Reach out to one living person whose presence has steadied you before, even if you must start with a single sentence. I need a hand with this. Such sentences are bridges, and they carry weight across to places where practical help and comfort dwell. This message encourages you to say that sentence and then to accept the small, imperfect help that arrives. You are not too late for love or for calling. Timetables are human inventions, and grace has its own clock that does not tally the years, but measures readiness. There are ways to rearrange small parts of your week to make space for the things that have waited for your permission. An hour a week to read, a moment each morning to breathe with your hand on your heart, a weekly call to someone whose voice steadies you. These tiny gates open long-term changes. Habit is the architecture of destiny. Begin with what you can keep, not what you wish you could keep, and watch how consistent smallness outperforms occasional heroics. You might hear people say that your past defines you. This is both right and wrong. Your past shapes the soil, but does not decide the harvest. The seeds planted long ago still live beneath the surface, and with new watering they can produce fruit different from what you once expected. Consider the gardener who does not demand that every plant look the same. She tends each according to its need, pruning, loosening the earth, and sometimes inviting new species into the bed. Your life can be tended in this way, with patience, with varied tools, and with the gentle willingness to transplant what must go. This message is a gardener's hand, offering a small spade. Accept it and begin to turn the soil. There are nights when sleep is distant and worry becomes a companion, whispering statistics of failure. During such nights, practice the small ritual of naming 3 things that are true and harmless. A warm cup, a reliable street light, the sound of a neighbor's distant radio. These trivial certainties are anchors because they are true right now, and truth, however small, resists the tyranny of fearful imagination. Repeat them until the mind stops circling. These anchors will not solve everything, but they will buy you a horizon line to stand on. This message gives you permission to use such simple practices without shame. They are practical holiness. You may be tempted to measure holiness by visible accomplishments, as if the value of your heart were proportional to public output. This is a common error. The interior life is quiet work, mending, tethering, listening, and its effects ripple outward in ways unseen for a long time. Hold the truth that faithfulness is often a quiet trade. You give small attentions day by day, and slowly the pattern of your life changes color. Your consistency will become the scaffolding for future bold acts, and you deserve credit for the steady, unremarked labor that keeps you upright. This message honors that hidden work and calls you to keep at it. Consider the people who have wounded you and the stories you tell about them. Those stories are drafts, not final editions, and you can choose to re-edit the narrative about what happened and what it means. Rewriting does not deny harm or excuse cruelty. It frees you from carrying the original author's intent as the only possible meaning. With careful editing, you can find that some characters simply had small roles in the plot, and that your story's arc belongs to you. This message invites you to take the pen, to rewrite with clarity and mercy, so you can move without being dragged by old scripts. There are daily choices you think are too small to matter, yet they are the stitches that become the garment of your life. The choice to answer kindly, to not gossip, to choose a cooling walk instead of an angry message. These small stitches accumulate and change your posture toward others and yourself. Habit is a quiet revolution. Start with 1 stitch you can keep for a month and observe the shift in how you breathe around people. This message asks you to choose 1 gentle habit today and to tend it as if it were a sapling that must be sheltered until it can stand alone. You might carry shame that says you are irredeemable because of certain choices. Shame lies to you in a dialect designed to isolate. Replace the voice of shame with the plain voice of facts. Name the action, claim responsibility where it is due, and then define the repair you can actually do. Repair often looks like steady restitution, not dramatic confession, and in many cases it begins with internal work that prevents recurrence. This message gives permission for honest repair and holds out the possibility that your life can be redirected by consistent writing, not by grand but unsustainable feats. There will be seasons when hope feels like a scarce resource, rationed by fear. In those seasons, cultivate small prophetic acts, actions that declare a future before you can see it, like planting a seed in winter. Prophetic acts are not magic. They are expressions of allegiance to what you want to be true, and they prime the world to respond. Choose one small prophetic act this week and carry it like a letter in your pocket. Maybe an honest apology, maybe an art project, maybe a phone call. This message will stand with that small act as witness and encouragement. At the center of your life is a place that needs rest, a kiln of longing that will not cool unless you intentionally let it. Rest is not only sleep, it is the permission to be less than productive and still beloved, the acceptance that worth is not tied to output. Protect a weekly margin for rest, a thin strip of time where you refuse to be useful and simply receive. Listen to music, sit in sun, breathe with no agenda. This margin will replenish the rest of your days and allow you to give from fullness rather than shortage. The message urges you to claim that margin and to keep it fiercely. Now, as the sustained image of the script begins to gather weight, the metaphor that has held us, the steady flame, the garden, the window, pause and allow that image to move from idea into felt truth. If a small echo of recognition arises, write in the privacy that holds your life the phrase, "Eu vejo isso," and then return to these words, letting them sit as a seal. Say it in your heart, write it as a small comment in your life's margins, and then come back with new breath. This marking is not a public act, but a private anchor, a middle phrase that affirms that you were present. The image you have carried will now shift slightly, inviting you to embody its promise, with small, actionable steps that follow. You will be tempted to hurry the process of becoming. Resistance will appear as impatience, and will promise you results if you simply push harder. Do not yield to that lie. Steady maturation is slow and sometimes invisible, like the growth rings inside a tree. Embrace the pace you're given and refuse the counterfeit urgency that demands immediate proof of change. Slow growth is strong growth, and your life will thank you for patient tending rather than frantic remaking. This message asks you to choose patience as a practice and to turn frantic energy into one repeated, gentle task. There are companions waiting for you who match your soul's rhythm if you will look beyond the loud and immediate options. They may be found in unlikely places, a quiet class, a volunteer group, a neighbor who gardens at dusk. Be willing to show up where people are doing ordinary work. Companionship grows best around shared tasks rather than curated profiles. When you show up consistently, the world organizes itself around the presence you bring and gives you people who mirror the steadiness you practice. This message encourages you to take one regular step into a place where people gather and to remain long enough to be noticed. At times, you will want to test whether the message you heard here is true. Testing is wise when done gently, not as a demand for miracles, but as an experiment in trust. Try one small obedience, a phone call, a small act of honesty, a purchase that supports your values, and observe the consequences over weeks, not days. Testing in this way trains your discernment and gives you evidence you can live with. This message does not promise dramatic fireworks at every test, but it guarantees that steady, faithful experiments will reshape your confidence. Around the end of this path, a space will open where you can give what you have received, and giving is the best proof that you kept the lesson. Start small, share time, not opinion, carry someone's grocery bag, listen without solving. Your giving should be not a broadcast, but a hand extended in a real place to a real person. The circle completes when you hand what changed you to someone else, and in that act, your life becomes a conduit rather than a reservoir. This message invites you to plan one small giving act this month and to keep it humble and real. You will be tempted to compare your progress to others and to feel either shame or superiority. Both are false mirrors. Comparison steals ground from your unique journey. Check your growth against who you were a year ago, not against someone else's highlight reel. Keep a simple log of small wins, notes in a phone, a scribble on a page, and review them once a month to witness your own shift. This message honors incremental victory and discourages the habit of comparison that collapses joy into envy. As you move forward, remember that gratitude is not a performative listing of good things, but a way to train attention to notice tender truths in the ordinary. Start each day by naming one small mercy and end the day by acknowledging one difficulty you met with integrity. These short practices will rewire your perception to find grace in corners you would otherwise ignore. This message offers you permission to practice gratitude without pressure, and to let it gather into a reservoir of resilience. You are being invited into a steady story, not of perfection, but of faithful continuation. Come with modest expectations and a courageous heart. The path is ordinary, punctuated by small refusals of despair and by repeated acts of kindness and truth. Hold to that pattern, and your life will begin to show the evidence of a presence larger than the sum of your choices. This message is an invitation to tend the flame, to rework the soil, to speak the names that need speaking, and to keep coming back. In this final curve before the close, I ask you to take one concrete step in the next week. Choose one small habit to begin and keep it for a month. Or make one honest call to someone you trust, or plant a literal seed and care for it daily. Actions anchor truth. Choose one and follow through with tenderness. This message will be with you like a gentle companion, reminding you of the small, decisive things that rearrange a life. May the kindness you need find you in the ordinary places you inhabit, and may you learn to receive gently what has been trying to arrive for a long time. Be patient with the slow work and keep the small flame tended. It is sealed here in the quiet of your attention and carried into the days ahead. You are still being held in the same quiet hand, and the ending does not arrive as a sudden door, but as a widening room where what was spoken can breathe without being hurried. Stay with the last line that was given to you, because it is not a wall, it is a threshold, and thresholds are made for crossing with care. The blessing already began in the ordinary places of your day, and now it gathers itself into a final steady light that does not shout and does not retreat. What was once scattered in your attention can now be gathered with tenderness, like papers lifted from a floor after a storm when the wind has finally gone still. The room is the same room, but you are not the same listener, and that difference matters more than you may know. Something in you has been trained by these words to stand a little more upright, to breathe a little more deeply, to stop mistaking pressure for purpose. The quiet you feared is revealing itself as a place where clarity can live. You did not come this far by accident, and the message did not reach you by chance. It arrived because your spirit was ready to recognize what your mind had only been circling. There are moments in a life when the heart hears first and the understanding follows later, and this is one of those moments. You may still feel the ache of unfinished things, but the ache is no longer the only voice in the room. A second voice has entered, calmer and more faithful, and it speaks of continuing rather than collapsing. Let the image that carried this whole journey remain with you now. The small flame, the patient garden, the window holding the rain, the hand that did not abandon the page where your name was written. Each of them says the same thing in a different way, that you have been watched over in ways you did not always notice. The flame was not only light, it was evidence that something in you refused to die. The garden was not only soil, it was a future waiting beneath the surface. The window was not only glass, it was a boundary that allowed you to see without drowning in what you saw. There were days when you thought the message was for someone else, that the signs were happening near you, but not to you, and that your own life was only an accidental witness. But the line has turned, and what was near has become personal. What was distant has become intimate. What was generic has become addressed. That is why the words reached you with such precision. The deeper truth is not that you are unusual in a proud or isolated way, but that you are seen in a way that restores dignity. To be seen truly is to be invited back into yourself. Now the pressure to prove yourself can loosen. You do not need to perform gratitude like a duty or produce certainty like a trophy. You only need to remain honest before the God who already knows the shape of your longing and the weight of your unanswered questions. Honesty is not a weakness in this ending. It is the doorway through which peace can enter. The more honestly you stand here, the more fully the blessing can settle. There are still tasks ahead of you, and this closing does not deny them. It simply refuses to let unfinished tasks become a prophecy of failure. You will still answer messages, make decisions, and meet days that ask more of you than you feel prepared to give. Yet you will meet them differently now, because something has been gathered inside you that was once scattered. Your steps may stay the same on the outside, but on the inside they are being ordered. The same mercy that found you in your lowest thought will also accompany you in your ordinary work. It will not only meet you in tears, it will also walk with you in errands, schedules, dishes, commutes, and the quiet minutes between obligations. That is how the blessing becomes real, not as spectacle, but as companionship. Your life does not need to become dramatic for grace to be present. Grace has always known how to live beside the ordinary. Keep the lesson close. What is meant for you does not need to be forced. The message that found you did so without violence, without noise, without needing to take anything from you in order to give itself to you. In the same way, the next season of your life will not require you to betray your own soul in order to enter it. You will not have to become less true in order to become more whole. What belongs to you will recognize your name without confusion. If doubt returns, let it return without allowing it to rule. Doubt can stand at the edge of a field and still fail to own the field. You are allowed to feel its presence and continue anyway. You are allowed to tremble and still move. You are allowed to take one faithful step while the rest of the road remains hidden. That is not failure. That is trust in motion. You have been gathered for a reason that is larger than one day, and now that gathering must continue in the way you live. Let your speech become more careful, your listening more generous, your reactions less rushed. Let what was healed in private begin to shape the way you answer the people in front of you. A changed inner life always leaves fingerprints on the outer one. Eventually, those fingerprints become a witness stronger than any argument. There is no need to chase a perfect feeling to prove that this ending is true. Peace is often quieter than expectation and more modest than imagination. Sometimes it arrives as a softened chest, a slower breath, a willingness to begin again tomorrow without resentment. Sometimes it arrives as the absence of panic, and that absence is already a gift. Receive the gift in the form it comes. Remember also that love rarely announces itself with spectacle when it is mature. It shows up in endurance, in restraint, in the ability to keep walking when immediate applause is missing. It shows up when you choose to be faithful with little. It shows up when you do not abandon yourself just because the day is heavy. In this way, your endurance becomes a language, and others read it even when you do not speak. The path ahead will include moments when you need to revisit the same truth more than once, and that is not regression. Repetition can be mercy when the soul is learning to trust what it could not hold at first. You may need to remember the flame, return to the garden, look again through the window and hear the call to your own name with fresh ears. Each return is not failure, but reinforcement. Each remembered truth strengthens the next step. So now let the final blessing settle over you without resistance. May your mind be calmed where it has been crowded. May your heart be softened where it has been guarded. May your body rest where it has been tense. May your spirit recognize again that it was not abandoned, not overlooked, and not forgotten. May the days ahead become clearer, not because every question is answered at once, but because your footing becomes steadier. And because this message was never meant to end in emptiness, let it end in belonging. You belong to the one who saw you before your fear began, who kept you through the unseen hours, and who will not withdraw the hand that has guided you this far. You belong in the story that continues after this sentence. You belong in the mercy that makes room for growth. You belong in the quiet after the storm and in the work that follows it. Take this ending as a seal over your moving life, not a stop, but a confirmation. What was meant to reach you has reached you. What was meant to awaken you has awakened. What was meant to steady you is steadying you now. What was meant to remain with you will remain with you as you rise, as you wait, as you continue, as you breathe through the next hour, and the attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.